Hello everyone, welcome to Researcher Paradise. I'm Sorish Das and in this video we will be learning about stack-based buffer overflow. The entire video has been divided into three sections. First would be understanding stack and associated theory. Second, we will be discussing and identifying the tools which are required for performing buffer overflow. Third and the last part would be demonstration of stack-based buffer overflow. So let's understand what is stack. Stack in layman terms would be a LIFO data structure which has a mechanism of last in first out. The two primary operations on stack are push and pop. Push meaning addition of element to the top and pop meaning removal of the topmost element from the stack. An ESP, also known as the stack pointer, points to the topmost location of the stack and moves up and down based on operations. Inside a computer, the stack is in an inverted position. Thus, when a push operation occurs, the ESP moves from a higher memory address to lower memory address, whereas a pop operation moves the ESP from a lower memory address to a higher memory address. Now, apart from ESP, the CPU has multiple other registers also. These help it perform various calculations and operations. They are EAX, the accumulator register, which is used for performing calculations, store return values from function calls. The basic operations such as addition, subtraction, and comparison use this general purpose register. Second comes EBX or the base register, which is used to store data. Third, ECX or the counter register, which is used for iterations and it counts downwards. Fourth, the EDX, which is an extension of EX and allows storing of data for more complex math operations such as multiply and divide. Next comes the stack pointer, as we have already known, which points to the topmost element of the stack. EBP, the base pointer, it stores the base of the current stack when a subroutine is entered, and it is required by the computer to store the previous point where it has to return after executing the function or the subroutine. Source index, it stores the location where the input data is stored. Destination index, it stores the location where the output data is stored. Last and the final pointer or the register is the instruction pointer, the EIP, which is storing the address of the next instruction to be executed. Windows application uses parts of memory, which includes process memory as well. This process memory consists of the following major components. Code segment, it consists the instructions stored by the processor. Data segment, it holds variables and dynamic buffers. And third, the stack segment, it's used to store the function parameters and variables. The Windows OS uses flat memory model, which means CPU has access to available memory locations without any segmentation. Let us understand the working of stack and occurrence of buffer overflow with the help of a C program. Here on the left hand side, I have a simple C program which takes command line arguments from the user and using a string copy function tries to copy the value into a local variable buff. Now, as we know that string copy function itself is dangerous. Why? Because it does not perform any input validation. Thus, if user feeds a value which is exceeding 80 bytes, the string copy function will lead to buffer overflow and cause the program to crash. So let us understand it with the help of a graphic. When the C program runs, a new stack frame is assigned to the main function. After that, a pointer is made to point to the location where our first command line argument supplied by the user is stored. The main makes call to the function string maker, with a pointer to the argv1. Inside string maker, a new character array buff is created of size 80 bytes. The point of returning to the main is stored in EBP, and the ESV moves further ahead into the function. When string copy is hit, the values from the past arguments are copied to the local variable, as you can see here on the left hand side. However, if the value of buff or whatever is the command line argument exceeds the size of buff, then the values override the registers, which includes the adjacent registers EBP, EIP, and all the pointer, and it leads to buffer overflow attack. We will be seeing in detail how we can craft the junk data in such a manner that it allows us to execute other commands that we want the system to execute. Now that we are done with theory part, it is time to move to the tools that are required for this demonstration. For performing this buffer overflow attack, I have used VMware Workstation 15 as the hypervisor software on my Windows 10 machine. Inside VMware, I have created two VMs. One is Kali for preparing the exploit codes and acting as the attacker machine, and the second one is Windows 7 32-bit VM with the following softwares installed in it: EasyRM to MP3 converter, which is our vulnerable software, which is vulnerable to the buffer overflow attack, and Immunity Debugger inside Windows 7 VM in order to decode and understand better the exploit codes that we are sending and help us better craft them to make it perform whatever function we want it to perform. For code editing, I have used Visual Studio Code as it is very convenient to me. However, you are free to use any other code editing software as per your choice. Now, this buffer overflow attack exploitation is carried out keeping the DEP feature off. You can find this DEP feature when you go to the system settings and you go to system environment variables, go to settings, and in the third tab you find the DEP feature. So currently what this means that DEP is turned only for Windows programs and services only. Means a third-party application, if it tries to send commands in the form of data and allows those commands to be executed, then Windows 7 won't raise a flag, and we can lead it to many heavier kind of exploitation. However, if this option, turn on DEP for all programs and services, is selected, then it will lead to blocking of any data to be executed. DEP meaning data execution prevention. You can know more about it by studying various articles. There is another exploit method where even if this feature is enabled, you can perform buffer overflow. That is a contains more advanced concepts, and I will be addressing to them in a separate video. For now, we will just enable this option, which means we have turned off DEP, and we will perform our exploitation, which is the buffer overflow attack. So now, in coming to our Kali machine, here I have my Visual Studio Code open, and I have already performed this buffer overflow attack, and so hence, however, I will be teaching you how to write the exploit codes. So first exploit code that we are going to write is basically we will be sending a chunk of A's. So for the sake of this experimentation, I will first send it a chunk of 10,000 A's to that application. So I will compile this Python code, exploit code, python exploit1.py. It has created a file of size 10,000 bytes, and now this folder has already been placed in the Apache directory of Kali Linux. You may, if you are creating these exploit codes in any other directory, let's say documents or downloads, then you have to ensure that this Python file or the folder altogether consisting of the exploit code is placed in the Apache directory, which is var www.html. And then I have enabled the Apache to service in the Kali Linux. As you can see, it is already running at port 80. What this means is it will allow us to transfer our exploit codes into our um Windows 7 machine. Inside Windows 7, I have the wget executable placed at the desktop and my command prompt at the location desktop. Now using wget, first let's know the IP. The IP of Kali Linux is 192.168.1.107. So in the CMD I will type wget http 192.168.1.107 /easy rm exploits easy rm1.m3u. So as you can see, a file of size 10,000 bytes which we have created has been downloaded. Now first what we will do is we will not directly start the application. We will first start Immunity Debugger. This is how the interface looks, and we will go to File, Open, and go to the directory where we have installed our RM to MP3 converter, easy RM to MP3 converter. Select the exe file and open it. So once it is loaded, we will see that it is at the program entry point, which means I need to start it. So I will press F9 and then we will see our converter application started. Now I drag and drop this M3U file into the converter application and you see that there is a pop-up. Going back to our Immunity, we find that this application is still running, means 10,000 is not sufficient to make this program crash. So we need to increase the limit. So what we can do, let us now increase it to 20,000. I now compile the Python code 20,000 bytes and then I go come back to my Windows 7 machine, then wget the file from Kali to Windows 20,000 and then so as you can see that even at 20,000 the program appears to be running. So then we need to now increment the value of junk from 20,000 to let's say 40,000. Basically it doubled from 10,000 to 20,000, then from 20,000 to 40,000. So I'll again restart the application so that it doesn't cause any confusion to you. Close this and wget the file of size 40,000, and as we see the program has crashed. This paused coming here means that there is a crash of the program. So that means 40,000 is enough for this application to crash. However, let us try to find any bordering value that we can try to find so that we make the get an optimum memory size of the exploits, so that we don't have to send 40,000 altogether. We may try to get the optimal value. So I decrease it by 5,000, meaning I send it of size 35,000, and Let's compile it and send it. The program has started. And then I fetch it again, 35,000. And the program crashes again. So we conclude that the crashing point of EasyRM to MP3 is 35,000 bytes. At 35,000 limit, the program will crash. But now we know that okay, that this program is crashing at 35,000. Great, we know that it's the crashing point, but how can we better know that at what point which register is being overwritten? Right now, if you see, we find that the EIP is also written with A's, the ESP is also written with A's. However, we, for stack buffer overflow, we need to know the values exact, or the location, as in where we can override the EIP, then the ESP. EIP, which is storing the next instruction to be um, executed, and ESP being the next, the topmost element of the stack, means the limit till which uh, the application ESP has been assigned to. So to make it more meaningful, to know that what exactly lies behind those things, what I'll do is I'll create a cyclic pattern of length 35,000. In order to do that, I will use the Ruby script which is stored in this location, user share metasploit framework tools exploit, and then call the script pattern create rb -l 35,000. So it will give me a cyclic pattern which will allow me to know that at what location is the EIP is getting overwritten, and what location the or the offset where our ESP is getting overwritten. You copy this whole junk from the terminal, till here, copy it, and then I come back to my Visual Studio Code and I paste it. So this is the junk data that I have, and then I put it in an M3U file, second M3U file, and I compile it, exploit2.py. So it opens a file with the name m3.easyrm2.m3 in write mode, and writes this whatever is in the variable junk. I write it into the file and I close the file, and at the console I just print that I am done creating the file. So once that is done, I now need to get it to my Windows 7 machine. So what I'll do, I'll use wget, just change the last digit to 2, and then I get the 35,000 K length file in Windows 7. Start the application inside Immunity. Drag and drop the code, and now we see that what is the patterns that we need to compute. So if you see here that EIP is being overwritten by 6C483660. This is in hex. Again, this, and what we need to know is the ASCII value, so that we can know the location, because the script that we will be using to find that location accepts ASCII input. So the corresponding ASCII input is L6HL, small l, capital 6, capital H, and L. Then after 4 bytes, we see that the ESP is getting overwritten with, by the value HL9H. As you can see here also, HL9H. So now we will search for the numerical value of the location where our EIP is getting overwritten, and from which place the ESP is starting to getting overwritten. So moving back to my Kali machine, I will go to the same directory where I had this Ruby script, clear out this clutter, and then in the same directory we have this script called pattern offset.rb, Ruby script. The length is 35,000, and the query that I want to make a query that okay, I want to find this particular pattern where it is occurring, L6HL. I hope I am correct, L6HL. So we find that at 26,089th location we are getting the EIP overwritten, and the second value that I want to search is HL9H, and it is at 26097. So that means 260 till 26089 we can fill our chunk of A's. Followed by that, if we want to override the EIP, which will be 4 bytes, so 26089 till here, then we have 26089 4 bytes. 26089 means 26093, then again 4 more bytes, and then we reach ESP, right? This will be more clearer when we see it graphically. So now in order to verify this computations, what I'll do is we go to a third exploit code wherein I'll first fill it junk till 26089. Then for the next 4 bytes, I'll override the EIP with 4 Bs. And the Bs, the hex of B is 42. Remember that. Then after 4 more bytes, my ESP overwriting starts. So based on the calculation, D should be the first. 4 Ds should be the first 4 values being written on the ESP, and the remaining part of the stack I will fill it with E's. So now compiling that code, Python exploit 3py 35,000 file, great, and then restarting this instance of RM to MP3 converter application inside Immunity Debugger. Fetching the third M3U file from Linux. And when we open the Immunity Debugger, we find that our calculations are correct till just before EIP we have filled the stack with A's. Then at EIP we have our 4 B's, perfect. Then after a padding of 4 more values C's, we start with the 4 D's, which is starting to overwrite our ESP. So now that we know how, now we will try to make this exploit code launch the calculator application. So how can we make it do that? The logic would be simple. We will make the exploit code fill the stack with A's till 26089 before EIP. Then at EIP I'll make it jump the ESP so that it makes a jump to the ESP, makes a jump, and then it calls our calculator shellcode. The shellcode is what we will be launching the calculator. So what two main ingredients would be the jump ESP instruction and the calculator shellcode. So the first ingredient, we can find it from the list of the executables inside Windows 7. I will use the Windows 7 system DLL shell32 DLL and search the command. You can search it by just pressing Ctrl F on your keyboard and then just typing jump ESP and click on find. So we find that the instruction lies at 75 B4 4B21. However, in stack, since everything is written in reverse manner, so in our exploit code we have to include it in the reverse manner, meaning it will be 21 4B B4 75. So we have this instruction from here, and then that brings upon to our fourth exploit, which is the fourth exploit, which will consist of the calculator shellcode. So I have written it in reverse, 75 B4 4B21. As you can compare, 75 B4 4B21 written in reverse. Alright, then a padding of 4 C's to reach the ESP, and once I reach ESP, I first put some knobs led followed by calculator shellcode. This shellcode has been generated with the help of MSF Venom. The command that allows us to generate this calculator shellcode is this. Let me copy it and show you. So basically what I'm telling MSF Venom is select the platform, Windows, executables. The command to be that I want the shellcode to execute is the calc.exe. The file format in which the shellcode should be written is in Python. The architecture to be selected for the shellcode should be 32-bit, which is x86, and you should avoid these bad characters 000A, 0D20. I hit enter. It takes a few minutes to create the shellcode. If you omit the bad characters, it will quickly give you the shellcode. However, it is not recommended. It may cause your program to fail. Means the shellcode will not run as you expect it to be. So here I have this shellcode, but since I already have developed the exploit, so I will go back to my Visual Studio Code, and then I will take this shellcode and put it here. And once I include the shellcode, the remaining space, earlier we were filling it with ease, this time we will fill it with knobs. You may fill it with ease, you may try so, but better would be you keep it knobs. And then I compile it with Python command, and then coming back to my Unity, I will start the application rm2mp3 fresh instance. Then I'll fetch my application, the exploit code m3 file, which is 35k. Good. And now when I drag and drop it, we get our calculator application being launched, and the application rm2mp3 converter crashed or terminated. So that's how we instruct the program control to jump our ESP and make it open the calculator application. Now this this is not only limited to just generating opening applications. You may also get a reverse shell in your Kali machine. How to do that? All you have to do is just change that shell code from calculator shell code to Kali's to a reverse shell. So what here I am doing is I'm calling MSF Venom, selecting P Windows shell reverse TCP, basically a TCP reverse shell I am going to create, and supplying the parameters as lhost and lport. Lhost will be the listening host of the Kali IP, and lport would be 4444, and then the -f file format Python, -a architecture x86, and -b bad character omitting. So you need to fetch put the Kali IP here, and so in my case the Kali IP, just once again confirming, it is 192.168.107. So this generates our shell code, but since I already have the same shell code present in this exploit code, so I again create it, and then Python 5 exploit, and then I fetch it here in the system. Now before launching this, like putting this exploit code into the application, I will use a netcat handler on my Kali machine so that I get the connection. So before I drag and drop this EasyRM5 M3U, I'll go to my terminal, and from here I will just type nc-nlvp 4444, and then when I drag and drop this file, I get my system access, and you can verify it by just checking using the command system info. So as you can see that I have command or like access to this system, and like I can do whatever that I want to do. Let's say so as you can see that I'm able to fully access this system with the help of just a simple buffer overflow code. So that's it for this demonstration of buffer overflow. Thank you so much for patiently listening and attending this demonstration. If you have any feedback or comments, do leave them. And thank you so much once again. And do visit and subscribe to Researcher Paradise for more such technical videos.